Welcome to the Sporting News A-League preview. I'm Kieran Francis, and joining me is the Sporting News' football expert, Joshua Thomas. JT, we've got a big A-League season coming up. What are you most looking forward to this season?
Yeah, I'm just excited for the football to get back. You know, it's been a long preseason as always. I think Nani's on everyone's minds at the moment. Obviously going to be playing the Big Blue on Saturday, so he's obviously the marquee man this season, and I think he's going to deliver. What do you think, Frano?
Yeah, for me, I'm just really pumped to see some of the characters this season. You know, the A-League, let's be honest, it's been a bit of a struggle to watch over the last couple of years, not just because of the product, but because of COVID and everything. It's been the league's interrupted, but this season, you know, we've got some really exciting personalities. We've got Jason Cummings at Central Coast, and, you know, how exciting is he? And, you know, just the way he holds himself is entertaining. And Charlie Austin, who we've already seen from his time in England that he isn't afraid to say what he likes. And, you know, he, as we'll talk about later, he's already said that he's going to be the star of the show up in Brisbane. So it's going to be an interesting season, but we'll get straight into it. Let's talk about Nani. So the big signing in the A-League to Melbourne Victory. Do you think he's here to start, or do you think it's going to be a holiday?
He means business. I mean, we've seen him preseason already. I think he scored about 5 goals. Like, it's ridiculous already. You know, he's not here for a holiday, that's for sure. You know, if he was not here for a holiday, he probably wouldn't have played those preseason matches. You know, he's serious. He's gonna do big numbers, I think. It'll be interesting to see, you know, where he's played on the pitch. You know, you were suggested in your article earlier this week that he's probably going to be playing, you know, more as a winger role. D'Agostino is probably going to be the lead man. Where do you think he's best suited?
Yeah, I think he's going to play out on the right. It's going to be an interesting scenario at Victory this season because they've obviously got, you know, I think Nani would probably prefer to play in the central attacking midfielder role. We've seen Tony Popovic's teams over the years, and they're very rigid lineups. And the only real huge amount of freedom and, you know, the ability to roam is given to the central attacking midfielder, which is Jake Brimmer. And I mean, I can't really see, you know, despite how good Nani is, you know, Jake Brimmer is the Johnny Borrow medalist, and he's such a key part of the team. So I can't really see him playing in that position. So I think that he will play from the right, and it's going to be interesting to see how much Popovic, I guess, how much free reign he gives Nani, because in the Australian Cup game during when he came on for 20 minutes in, I guess it was in pre-season, he just let Nani go where he liked. But that was obviously his first time, and Nani would pop up on the left, he'd pop up on the right, he'd come deep, he'd get in the box, and I can't really see that happening during the season because, you know, you never see a player from Tony Popovic's teams doing that. So it'll be interesting to see how he fits in. I think the fact that he signed a 2-year deal kind of says that he's, you know, means business down here. A lot of the players that maybe have come down here and, you know, haven't really been down here for the best reasons, like David Villa, for example, were on temporary contracts. We saw Alessandro Del Piero sign for 2 years. And, you know, despite the fact Sydney FC didn't have too much success in that period, he was magnificent. And, you know, the legacy that he left was huge. So I actually asked Nani during the A-League launch about that. And, yeah, he said that he was well aware that it was not only for, you know, himself, but it was also for the players and for the league and for the fans that he was down here for. And, you know, he seems to have taken on his media responsibilities quite strongly. And do you think that he can have an impact that could rival Del Piero's?
Well, it's hard to match Del Piero. He's got that legendary status for everything he did. But if anyone can do it, Nani's suggesting he can. As you were saying, you know, off the pitch, he's been really good. He's taken on all those media responsibilities. I mean, so many people probably want to have a chat with him, and he seems open to it, which is great to see.
Well, another star of the A-League this season, although he's only going to be in the league for about three months, really, is Grant Quoll. I mean, this kid's still yet to start a professional game of football, and he's one of the most talked about players. I mean, he's probably the most excited player I've been about for a long time. Why should we be watching him in the A-League before he leaves?
Yeah, this kid, I wrote in my piece this week that he's the Australian version of Erling Haaland. You know, every time he's on the ball, it looks like he's going to score. He's just got that X factor. He's got that swagger. You need to be watching this kid because he's going to have a great career. He's only got a couple of months left in the A-League before he goes to Newcastle United and in the Premier League. He'll get loaned out from there, but these next few months are key. He obviously wants to play for the Socceroos at the World Cup. He's got all the talent in the world. I'm getting a Daniel Arzani flashbacks. Obviously, there was a lot of hype for Arzani. He hasn't quite lived up to those feelings just yet, but Grant Quoll, he looks like the next big thing, and he's backing everything up on the pitch so far.
He was so exciting watching him play with the Socceroos, just in those moments. I mean, you know, that electrifying pace when he got over the top. There was also an instance where he dribbled around a few players on the left-hand side, and he also popped up and nearly scored as well. And he seems to me to be the type of player that, look, when I compare him to Messi's style, I'm not comparing to Messi's ability, but Messi seems to, pick and choose when he makes his moves and where he uses his energy and everything. And I think Qual's a very similar type of player, which is a big call to make because, I noticed he wasn't doing a huge amount of pressing and everything, but when the ball was in his vicinity, in his area, that was when he was, using his energy, and it was a devastating effect. And it's going to be really interesting to see because he's going to be starting games, hopefully from this weekend against the Jets. Do you think that there could be maybe a struggle for him because will be playing more minutes?
Yeah, definitely. That's the big question mark over him at the moment. Can he play a full 90 minutes? He only just turned 18, so he's still young. He's got quite a slim build as well. So physically, can he cope with the demands of 90 minutes playing A-League football? Only time will tell. Hopefully he does start on Saturday in the F3 derby. It's going to be a cracker.
You mentioned that he reminded you of Daniel Arzani, and it's a really similar situation because we saw Arzani come onto the scene in the A-League just before the 2018 World Cup, and it's pretty much been the same with Qual this time around. Do you think that he's definitely going to be picked in the Socceroos squad, and do you think it'll be like a similar role as to what Arzani did in 2018?
Yeah, I think momentum's definitely on his favour. If he starts this A-League season strongly, I think he'll be there in Qatar. He's just that wild card that Graham Arnold needs. We've seen the Socceroos struggle, in the final third, just lacking creativity. Someone special. Graham Qual's that man. Bring him to Qatar, throw him on last 20 minutes against France when we're trailing, 1-0, 2-0, whatever it is. Give him a chance and anything could happen.
Sticking with the Mariners, Jason Cummings, what an introduction he's made to the league. He scored, I think, 6-7 goals last season. He scored new Socceroos debut. As we mentioned at the top of the show, him and Qual are making the Mariners a real watch this season. What do you expect to see from Jason Cummings this season?
Goals, goals, goals. He told you this week that he's going to deliver, and he's backed up everything he said so far. I really hope the A-League just embraces the character. They don't try to silence him. Just let him be. He's such a great character, very colourful, exactly what the A-League's needed. You chatted to him during the week, last week. How'd you find that? What was he like?
Oh, he's just a larrikin, like he was just, he was taking the piss, to be honest, like, but in a good way. He did all these media requirements. He was lapping up the attention. He was playing for Shrewsbury in Scottish Premier League, in previous years. And, there wouldn't have been a huge amount of attention, on him back. But now he's a star of the show. He's the cum dog. That's his nickname. Everyone wants a piece of the cum dog. And he told everyone he's going to score for the Socceroos, and he did. So he's backing up what he's been saying. So yeah, I agree with you. We shouldn't be suppressing characters. The A-League needs characters because it's something that's definitely lacked over the previous few years. Talking about another character, Charlie Austin. He's going to start on and off the pitch this season.
100%. Yeah, I've loved what I've seen from him. On the pitch, he's already scored. He scored twice in the Australia Cup for Brisbane Roar. His interviews have been brilliant. A bit like Cummings, off the cuff. He's not afraid to say what he thinks. He's opinionated, unlike other people. And as well, we saw a viral clip on Twitter recently where he was guiding, Brisbane's young striker, walking him through what he needs to do. Those are the players the A-League needs to bring. He's got the quality and he's got the right mindset, I think.
The size of him, I could just see him up close and personal. He's huge. He looks fit. His legs are the size of my body. Like he was on the indoor court at Ultra Football for the launch, and he was smashing the ball to the net. And I tell you what, it's pretty exciting because he's 33. I don't think he has had any significant injury problems. It's not like he's 36, 37. And I think that with good service, he can score a lot of goals this season. And just in terms of his personality, it's great to see. I asked him about who was going to be the star for Brisbane this season, and he just looked down the barrel of the camera and said, myself, without even a smirk, because he believes that he's going to be the star of the show, and he's taking on the responsibility of, driving the league. And he said to me, look, I understand some people are going to think that I'm here on a holiday, but I'm not. And by the amount of media work that he's done and everything, to me, it's clear that he isn't. And I think Charlie Austin at Brisbane Roar is another reason why we should be very excited about the A-League this season. Do you think that he can possibly challenge for the Golden Boot?
I guess a lot depends on Brisbane. They struggled last year, second last. The things just didn't quite come together under Warren Moon. Austin's going to be key, obviously. If he can be, that final piece in the jigsaw, I think he can definitely score at least double digits if not more. So he's definitely going to be a challenger, but it all depends on how Brisbane, I guess, as a team come together.
And it's not just players that are stars in the A-League this season. We've also got coaches that we're talking about Graham Quall earlier about the fact he's never actually played a senior game. Let's talk about Dwight Yorke. Can he coach? Because he's actually never even coached a league game before, and he's won a trophy. It's a completely bizarre scenario. What's your take on this whole scenario of Dwight Yorke coming and how he's gone so far?
It's incredible. I mean, when I first saw the rumors of him, wanting to come to the A-League, I was like, come on, someone's got to take him. He's a star. As you say, he's a marquee coach. It's great to see MacArthur take the gamble. They need, as a club, they're struggling a little bit to get fans. Bring in someone like Yorke, exactly what they needed to do. Is he a good coach? I mean, he's already won a trophy, as you say, Australia Cup. The opposition they faced, only one A-League club out of 5, so it wasn't the biggest challenge. But at the end of the day, they won. They won 5 straight matches to win their first piece of silverware. So the early signs are positive, but only time will tell. I know you did a piece on Yorke today, looking at the type of coach he could be. What do you expect from, his team on the pitch?
Well, he's a striker. How many strikers have you seen go into coaching over the years and play ultra defensive? Not too many, I don't think. So fingers crossed. We really want to see attacking football in the A-League, and sometimes teams start off playing attacking, and then it gets to the point where sometimes maybe results are more important than than style of football. But hopefully we see plenty of teams playing attacking football, and I think that Yorke is definitely going to do that. I mean, some of the players that he's got at his disposal, in terms of he's got Johnny Warren at Devere. He's got Daniel Arzani, Craig Noon, and then up front, Al-Hassan Toure, Lockie Rose. And I also didn't mention Danny De Silva as well, in terms of creating playmakers. There's a lot of attacking talent in that team. And I think that they should be pretty exciting to watch this season. When I was talking to Craig Noon at the A-League launch, I was kind of, quick to mention about all these attacking players, but he was pretty quick to say that, the team's got a great defense and everything. So, trying to, I guess, not make it all about the attacking players. I also found it interesting that I saw an interview from Dwight Yorke and himself. And again, someone rattled off all the attacking talent he had. And he said, they're just names. A lot of them haven't really achieved, team success in their career. And, and he wants them to, become more than names and become, I guess, household players in Australia. And I mean, that can go down to Arzani and De Silva, who had both at times, two of the most talented players we've seen come through the Australian system. And, we've always been hoping they'd step up to be elite players at some level, whether that be A-League, Socceroos or international. And fingers crossed they can do that. What do you expect to see from MacArthur this season?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think they are going to be very competitive. Last season, they had a really good squad. It just didn't quite come together for them. Early signs are really promising. You mentioned Arzani. In the Australia Cup final, he was electric. Like, he looked really good. So we can carry that form into this season. They're going to be hard to stop, especially in the final third. I know Yorke doesn't want to be all the focus on the attackers, but they're going to be a good attacking team. If they can, hold their own at the back, then they're going to be championship contenders, 100%.
Do you think Arzani can make a late play at the Socceroos? I know there's not many games to go, but Arnold picked him about 12 months ago when he wasn't doing too well. And, I get the feeling that Arnie likes him. So do you think that maybe is there room for, say, an Arzani or a De Silva if they, I guess, start the season on fire to get in?
Well, I heard Dwight Yorke say that he thinks Arzani should go to the World Cup. I personally think Arnie won't take Arzani and Qual. I think it's going to come down to maybe one of those. So it's going to be who starts the season better. If Arzani scores a hat-trick in his first game, then Qual's going to have to match it in some way.
It's going to be exciting to watch. We'll talk about Sydney FC. Now, Sydney FC, what a team they've been over the last, 5-6 years. But last season, they missed the finals, which, as we know, it's pretty disappointing for any A-League team to miss the finals, top 6 make it. Do you think that Steve Corica can, I guess, arrest the slide they've had? Or do you think it's going to be a struggle for them again this season?
I had my doubts. I have my doubts, especially last season. I felt they were really stale. Teams worked out the way Corica wanted to play. He is quite a predictable manager. He has a formula. He likes to stick to it. You know exactly when he's going to make those substitutions. You know how they're going to line up player for player. In his favour, though, this season they have recruited really well. Robert Mack and Joe Lawley arrive on either flank. They're going to produce a lot of goals, 100%. Luke Bratton is also back after missing a lot of last season. So on paper, Sydney are stronger. Tactically, is Corica the man to steer them around? I'm not so sure. Another thing in their favour, though, is the new stadium, the revamped Allianz Stadium. Playing where they were at Leichhardt and all of that, it's never the same. Not without your home stadium. So I think that's going to be a big factor for them.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. If you look at their back four, they've replaced D.A. Caballo comes in for Joel King, but their back four could be pretty similar to last season. Probably Wilkinson, Donachie, and Ryan Grant. We might see Jack Rodwell play there at times, or in the midfield. But and obviously the goalkeeper Andrew Redmayne, who how amazing is his Socceroos exploits. But yeah, it's very same, and I think that's a bit of a concern for Sydney because they obviously conceded a lot of goals last season, and they don't seem to have been able to make, I guess, the defensive reinforcements, the signings that they've wanted to. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to come down to the wingers. We don't know how good they're going to be. I mean, Joe Lolly's come with great predicate in the championship. Robert Max scored at international level for Slovenia on quite a number of occasions. And if these guys are strong and chip in say 6-7 goals each, alongside Lafondra probably scoring double figures, well then Sydney can be a challenger. But I guess it's the case of, are they going to be good enough? The midfield to me looks really interesting, like a Caceres, Rodwell, Bratton midfield trio. That's pretty experienced and pretty tasty for me. How do you think that midfield trio will go?
Yeah, I guess you mentioned those three names, all great players, but you wonder where the creative spark is going to come from. They obviously lost NINKOVIC over the off-season dramatically to the Wanderers. I just wonder where that spark is going to come from. All three players, you said, are quite defensive-minded. Caceres has shown Isha. He had a great season last year. If he can continue his development, maybe push forward a bit more, that's going to be crucial. But at the moment, that's probably my question mark, is whether they're going to have the creative player to create the chances for that front three.
Well, they did have that creative player on their books, as you mentioned, NINKOVIC, but NINKOVIC has gone to Western Sydney, which is extraordinary. We should actually talk about, before we talk about NINKOVIC's impact at Western Sydney, the derby this season. You're going to have Rodwell that's transferred from the Wanderers to Sydney, and then obviously NINKOVIC has gone the other way. The fans are going to be absolutely baying for blood.
It's going to be incredible. We saw the scenes many years ago when Janjetovic swapped sides and, he had snakes thrown at him. The atmosphere was just electric. So in a strange way, it's probably the best transfers that ever happened, because it's going to give this Sydney derby that spice that has maybe been missing a little bit. I can't wait.
NINKOVIC, it was going to be so strange watching him after being at Sydney FC for so many years, win Johnny Royal medals, and now he's playing for the Wanderers. You can never fathom it before it's happened. Do you think he's still going strong? He's another year older. He can't keep going forever. Do you think that he's going to have a massive impact at the Wanderers this season?
On the pitch, I don't think his impact is going to be that big. He turns 38 in December. Last season, we saw he struggled with injuries. He was a shadow of himself when he did come on. So the impact he has on the pitch, I'm in a bit of doubt. But off the pitch, I think he's already made clear that he wants to move into coaching. He wants to lead, impart his wisdom on the next generation. So if he can do that, he can have a really good impact overall at the club. But on the pitch, I don't think he's going to be the star man for the Wanderers.
I guess there's been a lot of expectation around the Wanderers over the last 4 or 5 seasons, and sadly, the club kind of has fallen flat, missed the finals numerous years, and underachieved per se. There's been some big strikers that have joined the club and whatnot. This season, there doesn't seem to be that bigger expectation. Do you think that could play into the team's advantage?
Definitely. I think Mark Gruden's probably made a point of keeping expectations a bit low. He's obviously not one to love the spotlight too much, so they have flown under the radar. They have assembled, again, a really exciting team on paper. In years gone past, that hasn't meant much. So it's just going to be a matter of whether they can all gel. I think the important thing is Gruden. The Wanderers have made a habit of getting rid of coaches quite quickly. It doesn't work. It's not something that works. You need to stick with your manager and let him, see his vision through. So that's going to be key, whether he can live up to the club's expectations first and foremost.
And which players are you most excited to see at the Wanderers this season?
Borrello is someone I can't wait to see. He's obviously spent a few years over in Germany. We didn't get to see him too much. He's obviously in Bundesliga too. He's got great caliber. He's obviously playing in the Socceroos as well. So I can't wait to see him on the right or left wing.
He's another player who could actually possibly force themselves into the Socceroos if he scores a goal a game from now until the season starts. I mean, he in and about the Socceroos team over recent years. What about midfield and defence? Do you think that they are there's good enough players there to be able to challenge this year?
Yeah, again, there's question marks. Quite a few new players arriving. As we said, NINKOVIC, I think he's going to be a substitute. I can't see him starting every game, that's for sure. Defensively, I'm really happy we got Lawrence Thomas in goals. I think he's going to be great. He's obviously spent a bit of time abroad and he comes back a Western Sydney man himself. So I think that's going to be big in goals.
Moving on to the champions, Western United. I feel a bit sorry talking about them so long down the track of the show. But I mean, let's talk about their performance last year. I mean, how amazing was it? But do you think it's going to be rinse and repeat this season?
Yeah, I don't think they haven't changed, and I don't think they needed to change. It all worked. It all clicked into gear last season. They went on a really good winning run, a lot of 1-0 wins. It wasn't pretty, but it was effective. They've got a really good squad. They seem, on paper, they're not superstars, aside from Diamante, but they're all really hardworking players. They have a point to prove, and they proved it last season. So I think it is just rinse and repeat this season for Western United.
Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing performance last year. I mean, Diamante didn't play a lot of the season as well, which was quite extraordinary too. And I guess the fact that the club doesn't even have a home, like we talked about earlier about Sydney FC, how they were moving from Leichhardt to Kogarah and whatnot. But Western United was similar. They were playing all over the shop, played some games in Geelong, played some games at Andy Park. They're training at Essendon Football Club's facility, which they're sharing. And by all accounts, it's a great facility, and Essendon have been brilliant. But they are still sharing facilities, when it comes to locker rooms and ovals and whatnot with the AFL club. So, when the AFL club comes back from pre-season, it must be difficult with that and everything. And John Aloisi, I mean, he was pretty close to being finished as a coach, overlooked for a number of roles. No one probably would have batted an eyelid if he never coached again, saying, bad luck, John, you've done your thing and you're not good enough. And to come back and to win the A-League, I mean, now he's got to be a contender for the Socceroos. Being an A-League winner, A-League winning coaches generally are. So, I mean, he might need to do it again and everything. But, yeah, I mean, Western United, they should definitely be up there. It's really interesting. The Melbourne clubs have suddenly, it was the Sydney clubs that were probably stronger, but now it's like all the Melbourne clubs have all emerged at once. Speaking of the other Melbourne club, Melbourne City, do you think that they're going to be strong this season or they're all going to be set for a slide?
I think they could be set for a slide. I know that's quite a statement considering how consistent they have been, but we saw a few signs last season that, like Sydney FC, they've become a little bit predictable. The squad has stayed stable, which is a good thing, but also a bad thing. In some ways, sides know who to mark, how they're going to play. And I think with the World Cup as well, Jamie McLaren, Matthew Leckie, they're both probably going to go and play for the Socceroos. So that's going to, that'll halt their momentum a little bit. But, I think they'll be thereabouts. I just don't think they're going to have quite the same success as they've had. Yeah,
it was a funny season last year. Obviously, they won the Premier's Plate, but they didn't win a game against the three teams around them for the whole season in Victory, Adelaide, and Western United. They actually they either lost or drew, didn't win one, which is extraordinary for a team that's that position. And from my perspective, they play their style every week, and they don't actually veer away from it. And I think the stronger teams, all three, Victory, Adelaide, and Western United, played very good counter-attacking football. And Melbourne City would just continually have their fullbacks bomb forward. But these teams just managed to find space in behind. And it was actually, I think there was a contributing reason as to why they weren't successful, was that I don't think Casnorbo was willing to possibly compromise with his tactics in these big games, because I guess all the big teams, like Man City, Man City aren't going to compromise on their tactics. They're going to just play and win. I guess that's the dream at Melbourne City, to be similar. But at the end of the day, it didn't really work, and they weren't adaptable enough against these teams that were good on the break. And it was kind of strange. It took Leckie a long time to get going, but I think 8 goals is a pretty good season. McLaren's always going to score how many goals. It was the other players that they really need to step up. I think Andrew Naboo didn't have a brilliant season. And Marco Tilio's coming through. But yeah, I think they want some more impact out of those types of players this year. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that they'll be thereabouts, but I'm not too sure if they will win it. Let's move on to the competition, the A-Leagues themselves. Have you been impressed with how the A-Leagues have been promoting the league so far?
Yeah, I think it's been actually quite promising. I know I went out the other day and I saw an A-League's billboard on a bus. It's great. It's not something we've seen in the past. I think the APL, who now run the A-Leagues, they were handed a really bad hand last season when they came on board. Obviously with COVID, games were suspended left, right, and center, and even I struggled to keep up to date with when matches were on. So they really struggled to build any momentum last season. So I think they've put in a real concerted effort to build that momentum this season, which will hopefully not be affected by COVID. And it's looking really promising. Aside from the advertising, they've brought in a fantasy competition, which is great to see. It's something I love. Premier League is a no-brainer really to do that for the A-Leagues. And also we're seeing a lot of documentaries come out on Keep Up, on Paramount. The Sydney FC doco is brilliant. It's just, it's everything I've always wanted to see. So to see it coming to life is great.
And it's really exciting that you just mentioned the documentaries, the documentary that they've got. Let me get this right. So they're going to film it, and then like literally 2 weeks later, we're going to see it on TV, right? It's not going to be like all at the end of the season. It's going to be as the season goes, right?
Sort of, yeah. And I think there's going to be ones from last season as well. I know one on Adelaide United is coming out tonight.
Yeah.
And it's going to involve Josh Cavello coming out to his teammates, which is going to be, really captivating to watch.
It sounds awesome. And I guess it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about creating more characters in the A-League and actually getting the fans to relate to the players. And, a lot of people would relate to Josh Cavallo and, and tough situations and everything. And it's really exciting to see that the A-League's trying these new things with these documentaries. And it's very difficult you don't really see other leagues doing this kind of thing. And, to be able to get in behind the scenes and, I'll get to see a bit of a sneak peek at the launch and everything. And they actually had vision from last week in the sneak peek. So it's going to be pretty exciting seeing all these things happen in the A-League and then seeing them, so quickly and everything, have the big blooms this weekend. And then obviously, see behind the scenes the big bloom maybe a few weeks later and everything. And the launch that the A-League's put on was quite brilliant. In past years, they haven't maybe put the best talent up. It's been spread around Australia. They've done like a Victorian launch, a New South Wales launch, a Western Australian launch, but now they kind of did it in one. They ensured that the best talent were there. They ensured the best talent made themselves available to talk and everything. And I think it's a really good start. And, it's almost a shame it's a World Cup year because I just hope that it doesn't kill the league momentum-wise. How do you think it's going to play out? Because obviously the league starts, there'll be, 6 games, and then we're going to have the break. They have opted to start with a couple of blockbusters early. It was interesting to see whether they might, save all of them for after the World Cup. But yeah, how do you feel as if the World Cup break is going to, I guess, impact on the A-League this season?
Yeah, it could hurt or help it. It could stop the momentum or it could just keep it going because the World Cup is going to bring in a lot of people that maybe aren't, A-League fans or football fans usually. They tune in every 4 years. But once the World Cup finishes, they might be hungry for more football and the A-League is going to pop right back up. So if the A-League can use that to their benefit, there's no worries that it could actually, work in its favor. Hopefully
we see the Socceroos do well because I reckon if the Socceroos make it to the next stage or do pretty well, I think we will see some benefit for the A-League. Well, we've got A-League round 1 this weekend. It's come up. It's finally here. The longest off-season in world football. I've got to sort something out about that because it's just too long, isn't it? I would like to hear predictions on the games this weekend, starting with the big 2 games and then with the rest of them.
Yeah, well, grand final repeat first up Friday night. I think it's going to be a similar result as the grand final. I think Western United is going to be too strong. Pre-season form, Western United being so much better. They've been winning comfortably. City have been struggling. I know pre-season form, you can say of it what you will, but in the A-League, because it is so long, I think it is actually a good indicator of where teams are at. So my tip is Western United in that opening game.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go draw in that game. I think that both teams will fill each other out. And, that's what about the next games?
Yeah, so we've got Brisbane Macarthur on Saturday afternoon, I should say. Macarthur coming off the Australia Cup win. I think they're going to be confident, and I think they're going to be just a little sharper. So I think they're going to beat Brisbane.
I'm going to back Big Charlie to score. Hey, I'm excited to see him play. I don't reckon I've been this excited to see a player play outside of the team I support, which I won't say who it is, than Charlie Austin and also Jason Cummings. But have a look at Big Charlie on the couch there. I mean, look at that man. That man is just keen to score goals. He's absolutely loving life. Look at the size of his legs and his arms. Nah, he looks super fit. I'm so excited. So definitely tune in to watch the game. I'll back Brisbane at home. Next game?
Yeah, Every Derby before the Big Blue. I think Mariners, again, they're going to be too strong. They had a really good season last year, achieved more than what many expected they would. Now, Jason Cummings, after his Socceroos debut, I think he's going to score a hat-trick against Newcastle.
Big call. Yeah, it's exciting to see Cummings and Qual play. I'm going to back the Mariners as well. We should mention, there's some teams, we haven't got enough time to mention everyone, but Newcastle, obviously, Mikkel Tadze had a great season last year and is going around again this year, and he's obviously a Golden Boot contender. And Rene Piscopo as well at Newcastle as well. Hopefully, he's another player that could be a dark horse for the Socceroos gig as well. He'd probably have to play pretty well, but we've seen him be one of the most important players for the Roos. But in saying all that, the Mariners at home, we've got Qual fever and Cummings fever, don't we? Cum dog fever, we'll say. Now for the big one, the big one of the weekend, the Big Blue.
I can't wait for this one. Going to be epic at the new Allianz Stadium as well. Doesn't get much bigger than that. I think it's probably going to be a draw. I think there's too much on the line. Two big clubs going at it. First up, I can't see a clear winner. Hopefully there's going to be goals though, because both teams have real good attackers. So hopefully 2-2 draw. It's
going to be a magnificent occasion at the new stadium. Nani making his debut in the A-League. We'll see Jack Rodwell playing for Sydney FC. There'll be two ex-Premier League stalwarts, I guess, on the field, and it should be a great occasion. You're right; these games can be pretty cagey. One good thing though is that over the years, the first round of the season's always been internationals during the first round. So you're players that were playing for the Socceroos or players that were playing for New Zealand, which quite often were players that played for Melbourne Victory and Sydney FC. Weren't playing. Think of the likes of Ryan Grant and Archie Thompson, Costa Barbarouses, and basically a lot of the Sydney FC defence over the years as well. McGowan as well playing for the Socceroos. So it's good that we're going to have the full strength teams out there, and I'm pretty excited. I'm going to back Victory though. I think that Victory have improved last year. So I don't particularly think that Sydney FC's defence is strengthened this year. And we saw Victory actually win 4-1 last season. In Sydney, the last time I game of the season. Sydney will come out pretty fired up because of that, but I'll be backing the Victory. We'll move on to Sunday.
Yeah, first up, Wellington back in Wellington finally, which is great to see. I mean, the fact they were competitive, playing out of Wollongong for over a season, they deserve massive credit for that. So they're finally back home taking on Adelaide. Adelaide themselves, a bit of a dark horse consistently. They've always been competitive, thereabouts. Again, I'm just going to go for a draw. I think it's too hard to say. I think Wellington, on paper, I'm probably the most worried for them as a team this season. I think they haven't recruited too well. Just overall looking a little bit weak. But back at home, I think they're going to do enough to at least get a point.
It's been tough for Wellington, as you said, playing over in Australia for a couple of years and everything. And, it's amazing how well they've done. And then, they sign players like De Vere and Burgess, and they start to excel in the league. And then they get poached to Australian clubs and everything. It makes it pretty hard. I guess with clubs like Wellington, who I think their coach, Ufuk Talay, I think he's a magnificent coach. I think that he is a coach that over the years will work his way up through the system. And, it's hard to tell with I think Wellington Adelaide in particular how good they're going to be. I don't think we're going to know until we see some of their new signings play. And I think that game will be a draw as well. And moving on to the last game of the round, the Wanderers and Glory.
Yeah, going for the Wanderers at home to beat Glory. Glory, obviously, wooden spooners last year. Off-season hasn't been too kind for them. They've lost a few key players, Brendan O'Neill, Callum Timmins, who was the heart of their midfield, really. They've gone to Newcastle. I quite like Ruben Zadkovic as a coach. I think he's got a lot of talent. But in terms of the squad he's got at the moment, I can't see them doing too well this season. So my money's on the Wanderers to win quite comfortably.
Yeah, I'll be back at the Wanderers as well at home. Hopefully they can get off to a good start at the season, because in previous years the Wanderers have struggled at the start. And it's a bit of a worry for Perth. We know that they're not playing they're only playing 4 games at HBF Park the whole season, which is not ideal. Whoever made that oversight, whoever's fault that is, I'm not sure, but it's not too good. But yeah, it's looking like it's going to be a bit of a, the season hasn't started well for them already. The fact that they don't have a home and everything. So fingers crossed they can pick up. We'll move on to season predictions. I'm keen to hear who you think your champion will be, your premier, the Johnny Ryan medalist, the Golden Boot winner, and then also your young player of the year.
Yeah, a lot of predictions. Look, Premiers first up, I'm going to have to go Melbourne victory. I think they've assembled a really, really competitive squad. Tony Popovic, as a coach, he knows how to keep teams consistent, which is key to be champions. So they're my money to be Premiers. What about you, Trina?
Oh, for Premiers, yeah. So for Premiers, I'm picking Melbourne victory as well. I think that victory have strengthened their squad on last season. They replaced Jason Davis, and it was a big loss with an attacking left back. Instead of Francesco Margiotta coming off the bench this season, it's Tommy Juric. Even Nathan Konstantopoulos is a huge upgrade on Burkhan Kadar, which is a bit sad because Burkhan Kadar looked like he was going to be come through and be a good player, but he hasn't sort of made it. The whole squad seems a lot deeper. We've obviously got Nani coming into the team, and Chris Economides isn't going to be starting, I don't think, this season, and neither is Leighton Brooks and also Nilshan Velupillay. So there's a lot of talent on the bench, and those three players, Velupillay, Brooks, and Economides, are probably starting for most other A-League teams, I think, or pretty close to it. So yeah, and also as I mentioned, Tommy Juric will be on the bench as well. So those four players alone, it's attacking depth that kind of we haven't really seen many teams. So yeah, I think it's victory to lose. We've seen Tony Popovic's teams, maybe be tipped to win trophies, and they've won the Premier's Plate, not the Championship. But for me, I'm tipping victory to win the Premier's Plate and the Championship. What about you?
Yeah, 100%. It's theirs to lose. Popovic has obviously struggled to win the championship before, obviously losing grand finals with the Wanderers and Perth Glory. So it's kind of like his final hurdle, and I think the squad he's assembled this year, if they can't do it, no one can.
Why do you think he's struggled to win grand finals? Do you think it's just bad luck, or do you think there's a particular reason? Because you can't argue with the fact that the teams are great during the season. His team's great during the season, but they just haven't been able to get the job done when it matters, I guess.
Yeah, the only real reason I can find is obviously he drills his teams very hard. I've heard from multiple players how hard preseason is under Popovic, how hard the normal season under Popovic is. So come grand final, I guess maybe the players are just a little bit tired. They're overcooked almost. So that's just one reason, maybe. Yeah,
no, that's actually a really good shout. Yeah, because you think the style of football is quite defensive, and it's set up to actually to win those kind of games. But the record says he's so many he hasn't won. We'll move on. Johnny Warren medalist. Who's your tip?
More victory stuff. So I'm going to go Nani. I think he's the marquee man this season. I can't see him not playing well. Really, just he's still got that magic touch. He looks hungry to deliver, and I think he will.
For me, my Johnny Warren medalist is Luke Bratton. You mentioned earlier, it was so good to have him back from injury. He's going to slot into that Sydney FC team, and he will, alongside some great players and everything. And for Sydney to have a big year, they're going to need him to have a big impact. And we've seen him play some great football before, so I'm going to a bit of a left field one there. And also, it's deep line midfielders don't generally get the job done, but maybe with Rodwell playing a bit deeper alongside him as well, he might be able to, because he's got some great talent going forward. We've seen him score some great goals from outside the box. So he's my tip for Johnny Warren. Golden Boot.
Cumdog, Jason Cummings. He says he's going to score. I think he will score a lot of goals this season. Mariners need him to score goals as well. They're going to have a good season. Garang Kuol, once he's gone as well, he's going to need to step up even more. And if there's a player that can do that, I think it's Jason Cummings. So he's my hopeful Golden Boot winner. Technically probably Jamie McLaren and D'Agostino are probably going to be more amongst the goals, but I'm hoping Jason Cummings can get a Golden Boot.
Would you take Cummings to the World Cup if you're Graham Arnold?
100%. He's got that X factor. He's offers something a little different, even just using it as a super sub off the bench.
I agree with you on that one. For me, I'm going to back in Nick D'Agostino. Last season, he actually didn't really start a game until halfway during the season, and if you take penalties out of the equation, only Jamie McLaren scored more goals, and that was one. So D'Agostino didn't take victory penalties, which actually could count against him. Funnily enough, in a Golden Boot race, whether Nani or Brumo takes the penalties, I don't know. That's an issue for Tony Popovic. But yeah, I think D'Agostino has come of age. He reminds me so much of McLaren. I think that he's actually a slightly, when it comes to holding up the ball and link-up play, I think that he's slightly better than McLaren. but he's still got a fair way to go when it comes to putting the ball in the back of the net. He's only done it for a season and everything, but they just remind me they're just so similar. Like, D'Agostino will kind of not really have much impact in the game. I think he'll pop up and score. But yeah, his hold-up ability is, I think he's got the edge of McLaren in that. So if he can get his goal-scoring ability up near McLaren's, which, as we know, McLaren's won so many golden boots. 4 golden boots he's won here. That's ridiculous. So I'm going to back D'Agostino, but it's interesting to see with the penalties, because the penalties might count against him. Young player of the year.
I'm going to go Kieran from Adelaide. He's a 16-year-old, scored 3 goals last season in his handful of appearances. So I'm really hoping he can kick on even a bit more this season for Adelaide. He scored 4 goals actually overnight for Australia's under-17s team. So he's looking like he's ready to go.
That was exactly what I was going to say, mate. You just stole it out of my mouth. Yeah, I mean, 16. Like, it's how exciting is it? Like, we're seeing all these players come through. And how awesome is it that we're seeing so many, talented players coming through of African origin as well? We've had so many African immigrants come out to Australia, migrants over the years and everything. And now, they've started to have kids. And now we're seeing these kids come through. And we've obviously had Mabil, who's gone overseas. And now we're seeing the Quals. And now we've got also the Toure as well, Mohamed Toure, Alassane Toure. There's so many African players and talents. And Aaron Kunda, I tell you what, he's only 16. And was it 4 goals he scored last night against North Mariana?
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's pretty impressive, hey. So it's going to be another exciting A-League season, and and we'll be here to bring it to you at the Sporting News. There'll be more videos from us during the season, but from myself and Josh Thomas, thank you for watching, and get excited about the A-League this season.